Today, I'm going to talk about my failings. Welcome to Missing the Mark, where we look for meaning in strange places. I'm Christopher. So, this video is a little bit weird in that it's kind of a lot about me, although there is a general lesson I'm going to be talking about. And that's weird because, this channel isn't about me, because, I'm not the interesting part. I talk about interesting things in the world around us. But a conversation I had a little while ago made me realize that there's a certain danger in a thing which I try to do, which is in general a good practice, and that is I don't generally talk about my sins. I don't talk about my failings or my faults. And the reason why I don't talk about this is not to put forward a good image of myself. In specific, I don't talk about the specifics of them, but because human beings are social animals. And so it is a very good idea to not give people a bad example to follow, because as social animals, if you see somebody else who talks about their failings, in specific, I did this, particular thing wrong, right? To take a really trivial one that's safe to talk about, I stayed up late last night playing video games. It's not literally last night, it's a few nights ago. But anyway, I was playing a video game. I didn't keep a good, eye on the time. I stayed up too late, and then, I had to get up at the same time, so I got too little sleep, and so I was tired and a bit cranky the next day. And there are a bunch of people who depend on me for various things, and I wasn't as good at doing them because I was irresponsible with my time. Okay, this one's, everybody does it anyway from time to time, so I don't think this is very likely to tempt anybody. But this is as an example, though, as social creatures, when you hear about other people doing something wrong, it makes it much easier to feel like, oh, it's not a big deal if I do it wrong then. Everybody is committing this sin or making this, having this failing or, what have you. And so it can provide a temptation to other people if you talk about your own individual failings, especially in a context where it's not relevant. Now, this can be highly relevant if you're apologizing for them, or if you're talking to people about how to overcome something, talking about how you fail at doing it. There are contexts in which it will not be tempting to people because there is something about this context that helps. But if you're not in one of those contexts, in general, you should provide good examples, not bad examples to people, because that will help them to be virtuous and it will not tempt them into sin. However, and this is general, and this is why, for a long time, there are things like decency standards in broadcast. And it was about more than just not showing naked bodies. Decency standard, and that's the one that everybody wants because people desperately wanted pornography. And so they hated the nudity stuff. But there are actually a bunch of things that the decency standards wouldn't show. For example, you had to only very carefully, you had to very, very indirectly allude, for example, to fornication, rather than glorifying fornication. According to decency standards of that actually applied in the 1950s. And so that's why they were very indirect, because it didn't, and they couldn't really make it look like something that was attractive. And that goes for a lot of things. That there were other things too, actually, that you couldn't do, and that's why the people who did bad things were all villains who would get their comeuppance. It's because this has a psychological effect on people watching. The anti-heroes, or was it the 2000s? Yeah, I think it's the late 90s, the 2000s, especially the 2000s into the 2010s, where they're just awful, terrible, bad people, and then things worked out for them, have a bad psychological effect on people, because you see this, and as a pattern for behavior, because you're a social animal, you see other social animals and think well, maybe it's not so bad. He can get away with it. There are people who get away with all sorts of bad things. And the more you see them get away with it, the more you think maybe society actually functions when people act like garbage. And the problem is, sometimes society does function, but if you act like garbage, you're still turning yourself into garbage, so that's bad. Because, you matter. You have a soul and your soul matters. Like, it matters whether you're garbage or whether you're virtuous, because it's going to greatly affect your own happiness, especially down the road as your character gets more and more formed in being bad, and then you cease to be able to appreciate what's good, and eventually you turn yourself away from goodness because it's too painful to look at what you yourself have become, and genuinely bad things happen from this. And if you pay attention to vicious people, they either reform or get more and more miserable, or frequently just end in various kinds of premature death, whether from overdosing on drugs or just doing stupid stuff, and because they don't value life and they take stupid risks and then pay the price for it or whatever. So if you look at it, like, there are really good reasons why people should hide their sins from the view of other people so as not to tempt other people. But there is a problem which my attention has been drawn to with this, which is it can lead people to the mistaken impression, just because you hide your sins, that you don't have them. And that has other dangers associated with it. That people, because one of the things we want saints. And we really want living saints. There's a reason why in the Catholic Church people can only be canonized after they're dead. And that is, after they're dead, you can find out who they really were. You can talk to everybody who knows them, and people will tell you the truth about them. For the most part, they're asterisks, but And moreover, the possibility of them turning bad is no longer there. People can at any time become horrible sinners. Horrible sinners can at any time become saints. People can change their life. You can repent, or you can sin. And until your life is over, until your life is completed, it's not done. And so what it's going to be in the future is not yet determined. It's not there yet. Your future doesn't yet exist. It only will exist. And so the thing is, that's a big part of the reason. And so we really, really want saints. We want people that we can look up to. And we really want them to be living saints, so that we can talk to them and ask them questions, and they're here, and we can touch them if at least we're in the same room as them, and we could look on them and bask in their presence and have all of the benefits of having that person right there alive, and we can go to them when we need them, and so on. And the problem is, until a person's dead, you don't know that they're a saint in that full sense. Like, maybe they're saintly right now, maybe they're not. And and the thing is, if they're hiding their sins so as not to tempt you with their own failings, so as to make your life worse, it can be really tempting to try to make that person out to be a living saint, to use what you don't know about them as evidence that they are good. So, you see their virtues, because your virtues, it is not to parade them, right? Let me pick a virtue I don't have, which is fasting on days where it's not required. I did that once in my life, and it was incredibly. I'm bad at fasting. I keep the fasts that the Catholic Church requires as a minimum, and there are two of them, and it's the candy-ass Catholic fasting, where you have one meal in the day and no snacks. I'm bad at fasting, so this is a virtue I don't have. Say a person does something like they decide to fast on Fridays, right? Now, this is something that's really good to not tell people about. You do it, you derive the benefits from it, of doing this, but you don't tell other people, so they're not impressed with you about it. Because telling other people, unless you're leading a fasting club or something where you're encouraging them to fast and holding yourself up as an example to help them gain strength from, and you could do that, but in general, that should be somebody who's really, really good at it. Anyway, but the point is, so unless there was some very weird example there, you should not parade around your virtues so as to impress other people. However, you can, and you in fact should hold up your virtues to help other people. This is the thing, Christ said about how you don't hide a lamp under a bushel basket. You don't set up a light and then cover it so nobody can see the light. And so there are virtues that are good to do in public, such as teaching, for example. In teaching, other people find out about the virtue of knowledge that you have when you teach, but that's unavoidable in giving them the benefit of the knowledge. So, the point here being that a person who does that, who holds up some of their virtues so as to share them in the holding up of them, teaching being a great example, like you show forth the knowledge that you have that others may have it too, and it's the very act of showing people is the thing that gives them the benefit of it. They're not separable. That sort of thing is good to do. But a person who sees virtues from you and doesn't see any of your vices because you're shielding them from your vices, lest your vices hurt them, can take the wrong impression. Like, oh wow, here's a saint, here's a person who doesn't do anything, does these things right and doesn't do anything wrong. And now, there are people who are saints, but I am unfortunately not one of them. And when I talk about my sins, I mean it very sincerely. It's not. I just want to be clear. And this, as I said, is weird that this part of this video is in some sense about me. But I just want to be really clear because I have done this, because I've shared knowledge on a wide variety of subjects, and some of them are about like how to become better. How to strive for greater virtue. I want to be really clear here that I am not yet a saint. I'm trying, but God forgive me, I'm not there yet. And so when I talk about my failings, and in a general sense, when I say like I have my failings or my sins or my weaknesses, I mean it. I am not kidding. I am not joking. I am not being scrupulous. The thing I am doing is I am speaking generally so as not to tempt people into also being vicious with the vices that I have. I don't have all vices, right? But you can have all virtues. You can't have all vices. Like vices, one of the interesting things is that like all truth is compatible. All truths are true at the same time, but not all lies can be true at the same time. In like manner, you can have all virtues at the same time. You can be trustworthy and honest and brave and prudent and loving and hopeful and faithful all at the same time, but you can't actually be lustful and proud and gluttonous and envious, especially you can't be like proud and envious at the same time. They're contradictory to each other, and in general the vices don't work together. So like I don't have all the vices because no one can have all the vices. It's impossible to have all the vices. They're contradictions. They're lies essentially, and not all lies can could be true at the same time. But anyway, I just want to be really clear. Like it's not some put on, and in the same way, like Bishop Barron in his Sunday sermons will often refer to something or other fellow sinners. And, when a man like Bishop Barron says that, when he says, something like, listen to me here, fellow sinners, this is something we do. Don't inquire into the specifics of his sin, because it won't do you any good, and it can do you harm. Don't inquire to the specifics of my sin, because it won't do you any good and could do you harm. But when I say that I am sinful, believe me. And when Bishop Barron says, fellow sinners, that he is a sinner, I believe him. And so that's the part of the video, as I said, this is the more general lesson, and Bishop Barron's a lot more important than I am. So, when Bishop Barron says fellow sinners, believe him that he is a sinner. Don't take this, like he's not, if he were lying to you about that, then that would be the vice of lying, and so he'd be a sinner. So, like, you can't say I'm a sinner and not be a sinner. It's impossible. If you are not a sinner, the only thing you can say is I am not a sinner. So if a person tells you they're a sinner, guaranteedly they are, one way or the other. And it would make precisely zero sense to have no sin except for lying that you're a sinner. So if a person tells you they're a sinner, believe them. about everybody. Like, believe them. They mean it. They can't not mean it. It'd be logically impossible for them to not mean it. And so, yeah, just, I'm a lot more comfortable in the general stuff because, like, I don't personally matter here. But that's not like a dig against me. I'm just saying, like, I matter to God and it matter to me and my family. But, like, if anybody happens to derive benefit, then, there is a human relationship, even if, like, there's the danger of the parasocial thing here, etc. Okay. Right. Like, but, like, in the grand scheme of things, I don't matter in that, like, in that worldly sense. Right. Like, as I said, it mattered to God, etc., etc. This is not like a dig against me or me feeling bad or anything. I'm just saying that, like, I'm an unimportant person and life is so much nicer as an unimportant person in a worldly sense. But, like, Bishop Barron matters, in a worldly sense far more, possibly in a moral sense too. But in any event, I'll leave that to God to decide. It's irrelevant to me. It's something I do not need to know in any way, shape, or form. It's not a question that I'm interested in. Just need to throw in a caveat to avoid potentially claiming a false equality. Anyway, point here being that in general, when you see people saying something like, I am a sinner, or we are sinners, that includes them, believe them. They're not joking. They're not lying. They're not, like, picking the, like, one small thing that, like, is the tiny little hair separating them from being perfect. Because if a person were doing that, they would be good enough to tell you that, like, they have the slightest of faults, and they get everything right, except one time 2 years ago, I did get this one thing that, I took 17 M&Ms from the jar when I should have taken 16 from the jar. And I was a little careless there. We found that out later. I didn't realize it at the time. Like, if a person were actually that good, they would tell you, because they could do it without pride, or without without vanity. And so, and it would be relevant, so they would tell you. But, yeah, if a person tells you that they're a sinner, don't ask about the specifics because they won't do you any good. But believe them. Take them seriously. They mean it. They're not lying, and you'll get more out of it if you actually believe them, because they're telling the truth. Until next time, may you hit everything you aim at. If you like this video, then clicking the like button, according to YouTube, will make them more likely to recommend it to others. If you know anyone who might get something out of this video, then it would be kind to share it with them, or just share it on social media in general. And if you'd like to see future videos of mine, you can subscribe. And if you're not in the habit of checking your subscriptions page regularly, then I suggest clicking the notification bell and setting that to always, because otherwise subscribing to a channel basically just sort of like gives YouTube a hint that maybe it should consider recommending these videos to you, possibly at some point, if they think so. It's a funny world we live in. God bless.